Yo, what's up, y'all? You're now tuned into the podcast with Tigmatic, and we're here. Let's go.
Everybody go tapping with the pot with Tigmatic.
Y'all tune into the Pop Podcast. And guess what? There's an episode of me on
and
it.
You are tuned into the Pot Podcast.
With the Pot Podcast with my boy Tigmatic. You hear me? It's going down.
To follow the Pot Podcast with Tigmatic.
That's that number one.
That's that number one.
I remember when I first started, on go like Monopoly boards. I need a place to park it. I used to always want to have a boat, but I always had the iron on me. Shoot, I always kept it toast. I used to always want the race car, but I always had my dogs, man, and that was who I needed most. You get the boot, you don't want the thimble. Little man on a horse, I was sport like a polo symbol. What you want ain't always what you need, and what you need ain't always what you want. If they try and make you play the back, tell them that Rosa Parks sat in the front. It's like I need to be alone, I wanna be in my zone. Just like I need my contacts, but don't want a phone. I got them anywhere minutes, cause I love to roam. I tell her that it's open field, but I love the dome. She keeps screaming I'm a dog, cause I love the bone. She gon' make me growl at her all through the phone. How you miss me, you don't hit me up. You see me, girl, I'm still standing, I ain't ever duck. Listen up, what you want ain't always what you need, and what you need ain't always what you want. If they try and make you play the back, tell them that Rosa Parks sat in the front. Every time they would say I wouldn't be nothing, I reply back that I'ma keep coming. I'm high right now, when I hit the ground, I'ma be running. They gon' make me have to book a T something, see something, gotta give, or forfeit for you to be something. So it's best that you don't wanna need, youngin'. The difference between something you dream and something that seen nothing but a bunch of people that be mean mugging. See, youngin', look, I've been in it a minute now. I started and I finished now. No more folding the dough that I'm holding. I think I'm gonna start me a business now. I'm worried about fitness now. My stomach ridiculous now. I get it, I flip it, I flips it. I think that I'm finished now. What you want ain't always what you need, and what you need ain't always what you want. If they try and make you play the back, tell them that Rosa Parks sat in the front.
My brothers chose different roles, so we don't grind together. But if we was broke together, we gon' shine together. I played my part from the start, none of time is better. So my love for rhyming will have me up in my prime forever. I was chasing these dreams and never slowed up. Stood tall through it all and never fooled up. I just gymming for debit, saving lettuce and stacking these casseroles so the chickens gon' lick the cold cuts. This time around, I gotta make them sick. Rappers passing the casting call, don't make the script. You just gotta close your eyes and you can visualize it. Have you nodding to these bars before you make the wish. Just praying this city won't be the death of me. Got a strap on scepter and it's stressing me. So that look that I'm giving, it's like telepathy. A warning or a blessing, whatever, but ain't no testing me. Bazana pull his tech on you need be like he ain't earning stripes like a referee in the D-League. Bit whistle round the neck, hanging by the ropes. Make that blood splatter, leave you shattered like kaleidoscopes. Fully automatic, my words hurt. Worse than a chick with a broken heart from her slurs. That's my word, I make words curve. So third verse, metaphors and similes is wavy, so the verbs surf. Them hammers holding rounds of applause, so give it up, ain't got worried about me sounding it off. We talking down to the law while we handing them off. My middle finger to the sky, my other hand on my ball. It's like that. Believe they coming right back. If I rap about the truth, your favorite rapper might rat. So it's past story isn't baiting to my expiration. I'm dreaming about the penthouses, but I rap the basement. Chiz told me that they tired of the old thing. Turning over and over, made our own lane. Stay true to my living like expensive denims. Cause I believe in my team, my music is religion. And when you really love rapping, brother, it ain't nothing. Killing them with wordplay, and this is just my introduction. Stay down, better hashtag it. That's the motto for the summer. I'm finally out my slumber like that.
Astronauts report it feels good.
Oh man, that is curry. What did I do last night?
Woke up, broken in the motherfucker, looking in the mirror, wanna throw up. Kill a couple butters, spend a $1 bottom like so what? Don't believe, just watch like a E-line rocket, I'ma go up. Watch me blow up. Woke up, broken in the motherfucker, looking in the mirror, wanna throw up. Kill a couple butters, spend a $1 bottom like so what? Don't believe, just watch like a E-line rocket, I'ma go up. Watch me blow up. Man, I ain't never been poor, but I might have been broke with a killer hangover, the vitamin store. Like what I did last night, but now no. Man, I tell you this here, man, I drink no more. Now I smoke no more, and I fuck that whore. But maybe I did, who that in my bed? Looking like a gram, and it must have been a man. Call an ambulance, I can't feel my leg. Don't feel like walk, didn't see my walk. Gon' see on floor like a scene I dog. Try to find my shit, and then no time spent. Got 30 minutes call, promoters on my list. Like money, moolah, be your mommy like a hula. Bust a few maneuvers, now they war, I'ma do it. I'ma do it. Not a dollar, not a corner like a hornet, but I'm no longer selling them rocks or E. Locked in engineer, slinging Spotify dreams. Cost 5,000 cents, wanna take my pick. Got a diarrhea, flow talk, constant shit. I'm a ostrich head, cause I got a lot of neck. White middle age, when I think I rhyme like I'm an ep. But I taste like Skittle, what's a Jacob with a kitty in the middle, got me spending on my bread. Woke up, broken in the motherfucker, looking in the mirror, wanna throw up. Kill a couple butters, spend a $1 bottom like so what? Don't believe, just watch like a E-line rocket, I'ma go up. Watch me blow up. Woke up, broken in the motherfucker, looking in the mirror, wanna throw up. Kill a couple butters, spend a $1 bottom like so what? Don't believe, just watch like a E-line rocket, I'ma go up. Watch me blow up.
Spend a $1 bottom like so what? Don't believe, just watch like a E-line rocket, I'ma go up. Watch me blow up.
All right, folks. Hey, listen. I want to thank everybody that's been rocking with me. We moving and booming. Listen, episode 95. My guest is in the back. He's here, y'all. But before I introduce him, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to everyone that has been supporting and watching the show. It is because of you the show has been booming the way it is. I've had some great connections because of this show, and we're going to keep it moving like that. We're going to keep going. And we're going to bring some more talent, some more stories, and some more inspiration to you guys. But listen, like I said, my guest is in the back. And my guest is an actor and has a hell of a story. So when we get into this story today, I want you guys to really pay attention, okay? Because it's his story is definitely something that caught my attention. And he's doing some things. He's an actor. He's been in Cobra Kai. He's been in a movie or two of his own and doing some things. So without further ado, I give you the one and only Kris D. Roberts. What's going on, good brother?
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for your kind words this evening.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Doing well this evening. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm great. I'm great. Well, you know, I just gave you a formal introduction my way, but why don't you give yourself one like only you can?
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody tuning in. Thank you, viewers. Appreciate the platform. I appreciate the opportunity to come on. As you said, I am a film actor. I used to call myself aspiring. Started my journey in the film industry in 2019 and have been very blessed since to have accumulated 30 some film credits. I've had privilege of being in music videos. I was in VH1. Just amazing experiences throughout this journey. My backstory: had a great family upbringing in the beginning. Grew up in a small town.
Wait, Kris, wait. Before you tell the backstory, tell them a bit more about some films that you've been in or done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I structure this thing with questions. So,
got you.
With the formal introduction, give them the rundown of some films you've been in first.
All right. 2019, this began. I became a background actor on a Netflix production starring Jason Momoa, Sweet Girl, filmed in Pittsburgh. As I said, it was around this time of year because I just passed, the big woohoo 5 years in this thing, and so it was freezing cold, 14-hour days on set, but it was a privilege to be a part, for that first experience to be on such a large production. And at that point, I caught a bug and I decided, I was going to move down here back to Florida, having grown up between Pennsylvania and Florida, that I would move down here and begin to peruse the film industry here and pursue and network and make connections. So in 2019, well, the early quarter of 2020, I loaded up and came to Florida. Saying that to say, immediately I found myself getting involved in the independent Florida film industry. I began to network with people. I've been in small projects, independent projects along this journey, which led to larger opportunities. It all came around by trusting the process. Saying that, I was fortunate to be cast in a film called Mexican Connection. Very significant to me. It's on Amazon Prime. It was a very basic role, but it was very significant because I had the opportunity to have my first film fight scene. I called it my Hollywood fight scene with an actor I admired as a child, well, as a teenager, Damian Chapa from Blood In, Blood Out.
Oh, that's cool.
The experience was unexplainable. I couldn't explain it. I remember showing up to the film set. I knock on the door, and Miklo opens the door, and it's like a Blood In, Blood Out moment. And it was so surreal because it was a privilege, to know in 2019 when I took that huge step of faith, that I would have never thought that opportunity would have came to pass. And it was not only on that film, but fast forward, and I'm on a film set in Miami, Secret Society 2, Amazon Prime, Miasha production, starring Jeremy Meeks, Edward Soto, and a lot of the Florida film industry. I was on part 2, as background, and I was just a blurry guy in a prison scene. I was a disabled inmate in a wheelchair. If you watch it, you'll see.
Yeah.
But a year later, they called me back and they're like, "Hey, we're filming part 3. We want you to come back." So immediately I was overjoyed. I was like, "Holy cow!" Not only was I in a large production, but a year later, and they're reaching back out to me, and I'm just like, "Wow!"
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
that on part 2 was my first interaction with Jeremy Meeks. Okay. And really one of my first experiences on a larger production. So I was very inquisitive and very, just kind of taking it all in, you know. And I remember approaching Jeremy Meeks and asking him, you know, do you have any tips for an aspiring actor? Now, mind you, Jeremy's more significant in the modeling world. However, you know, I've seen him as a veteran, to me at least. So
Right.
I remember asking him, and then fast forward 6 months, it's the significance being 6 months, I find myself on another film set, and I look over and here's Jeremy Meeks.
That's
So I
cool.
walk over, I'm able to say, "Hey, I took your advice and here I am." Now, mind you, fast forward another year, and now, like I said, I was back on Secret Society Part 3. So the significance of that was amazing too. I was able to update Jeremy of my journey along the way, you know, advising him, "Hey, look, your advice has really been helpful. Thank you." You know.
Oh, that's awesome. That's definitely awesome. So tell me a bit of how you got into the acting as far as, you know, going out there and finding your way into the acting industry.
You know,
How did that happen?
that's a popular question that I haven't really quite nailed it down because to be honest with you, Tig, sometimes I'm just like, what was I thinking? Or what am I thinking? You know, I think what it was like I said, that first time on that film set, I was like, man, this is amazing. Let's see, I was 42 years old, my first ever film experience. And while I was there, like I said, I told myself I want to do this the rest of my life. So the desire started there, but in order to bring that to pass, I had to make some major life changes. You know, I had to take big leaps of faith.
That's right.
Just one day at a time. Trust the process. You know, bring gratitude to the table. Bring effort to the table, and network with people. Get to know people, and just not only that, but I begin learn that as I, you know, got more experience, I was able to reach back and help others along their journey as well. So that's been another privilege of this experience, you know, to be able to, because believe me, there's people I helped out in this that are far ahead of not. It's hard to explain. They're doing
I get
much
what you
better
mean.
than me. They're
I get
doing
what you
much
mean.
better than me, bro, and I'm nothing but overjoyed for them. You know, it's a gift. It's a gift.
Right. So what has been your most challenging role you played so far, and what did you learn from the experience?
Uh, I was in a film called Obedience. Shout out to Darian McGee. Thank you, sir. Donald Smith. Thank you, guys. Uh, my friends called upon me for this role. The film, it was Obedience. I was to portray an extremely racist drug dealer
Right.
who basically murderer because his full intent was to lace heroin with fentanyl and distribute it in urban ghetto neighborhoods.
Oh man.
So it was a very challenging role. Very challenging role. Of course, the message was against drug use.
Right.
The story as told. But I was we had a film premiere, a red carpet film premiere, and again, thank you, Darian McGee, for having me on the project. And you know, it was some of my earlier dialogue acting because most of my work up until this point has been background acting. However, I've begun to get more dialogue roles and continue to work on my craft. But again, it was just challenging because I had to become this monster character. You understand? And
Right.
since then, now that there was another role I filmed in South Georgia. I'd like to shout out Austin Rhodes for that opportunity. Um, it was a similar role where I was a club dealer, crime syndicate. And I had a confrontation scene with a guy that was like 2.5 times my size.
Okay.
So here's the thing. When you're having a confrontation on screen, if it's not believable, understand what I'm trying to say is in order to make that look believable, you don't have to act in rage. You have to be enraged.
To embody
So
the character, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If I'm acting enraged in somehow, some shape or form, it's going to show because the camera
Right.
don't lie.
Absolutely.
So imagine take after take after. I think we filmed 6 or 7 hours. My brother Bronson was my scene partner, and like I said, he's about 2.5 times my size. So to jump up and holler at this guy and make it look believable was indeed work.
Oh man. I can
But
imagine someone 2 times your size. Was it a fight scene involved as well, right?
no, we didn't have a fight. But what did happen was I ended up signing my club over because my wife and daughter had been abducted by his goons.
Oh man.
So it was a hostile takeover scene as Bronson called it. But yeah, no fighting ensued. Uh, the fighting scene I mentioned about with Damian Chapa was actually kind of unique. Back to Mexican Connection on Amazon Prime, Kris D. Roberts. He was dressed in an Elvis costume as we had our little tussle. And that's
Roger
another
T
thing.
says, "Hey Chris, your boy from North Fort Myers is here."
Hey Reggie, thanks for tuning in, brother. Appreciate you. Reggie calls me as Chris Brown.
Oh man, that's cool. So let me ask you this, but I'm gonna go off of my questions. This is just a question that just popped up in my head, right? So, what is like one of the most difficult challenges for an actor on set with stars? What is that like? You got the opportunity to be around Jason Momoa. What was the most difficult thing? Because I can imagine like being around those type of actors when you're first starting off can be a little intimidating. You don't want to mess up lines. You don't want to, seem too nervous because, like you said, you'll have to keep filming over and over and over. So what was it like for you? And what was some advice that you got?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't have any dialogue in the larger productions.
Right.
So saying that to say the hardest thing working around people like that is and if you know, is keeping your phone in your pocket. But I've watched them work, and by proxy, I can see, it's when you ask the question, I was like, well, I'm thinking to myself, I can't relate on what it was like dialogue wise, but in the air you can feel a professional, like case in point, being in the final season of Cobra Kai. You know, you could tell everybody was very professional. You know, people were working. It wasn't, I mean, they were having a great time, but they were working. So to answer your question, I think is, you know, being on such a large production with a lot of people, it is challenging. It is
Yeah.
challenging, and I can see how it could be challenging. Now, again, I didn't have dialogue, but that's just my 2 cents on what I take from it. But it was
Yeah.
very professional. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Cobra Kai, let's talk that a bit.
Let's do.
All right. What was that experience like for you a bit?
Well, the starting from when I applied to be cast, thank you, Sean Thompson. Shout out to Sean. Sean opened the door for me to become cast on Cobra Kai as well. Again, it was just a featured background role, no dialogue. However, it was it was a character role. I'm Kris D. Roberts. I was the France in the karate tournament, the Saikai Taikai. Part 3 drops February. Looking forward to that. So it was surreal. It was almost like another one of the Damien Chapa experiences I had, the actor from Blood In, Blood Out that I watched as a teenager. So here I am on Cobra Kai, same scenario. I'm around these phenomenal actors that I had the privilege. I grew up I was 7 years old watching The Karate Kid, you know. And now here I am working, rubbing elbows, you know. I literally ran into John Kreese between takes and well, you know, Martin Cove. And I brushed shoulders with him and he dropped his cookies and I looked over and chuckled and I said, "Swept the cookies." I don't know if he heard me, but he looked at me like he did. But it's really unexplainable, Tigmatic. It's like living my dreams. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I pinch myself constantly. It was a background role, but it was a character role. And I was privileged to I worked next to Thomas Ian Griffith, you know. That was the biggest thing to me because we filmed in the spring, you know. And here I am watching all the Cobra Kai releases and updates of new releases, and you don't hear anything about Terry Silver, and the whole fan base is going crazy. Like, where's Terry? Where's Terry? When's Terry? Is Terry coming back? And all the while, I'm like, oh my God, I work right next to him. In my mind,
you know, that show is definitely good. And for the folks watching, if you haven't watched Cobra Kai, and if you love the Karate Kid as a kid, if you're from our era, I don't want to seem like we old heads, but even the young bucks, if y'all watching, y'all watch Cobra Kai. Y'all know how good the show is.
Definitely.
But that's awesome, man. So how do you balance your personal life with the demanding nature of the entertainment industry?
Well, I'm fortunate. I'm a contract auto detailer, so I'm fortunate to have the flexibility with my schedule. It's tough, Tigmatic, because you know when I start a job, I always try to let them know that from time to time I have film opportunities, and when I'm in a locked in position, obviously booking film roles is second priority, which I want that to be first priority. So again, I'm fortunate that I can basically make my own schedule. So I work Monday through Friday, you know, and if a role comes up where, case in point, last year, well, this past when I cast last spring in Cobra Kai, it required 5 weeks of my life. You know, I'd travel to Atlanta and film for a week, staying, you know, here, there, and everywhere, the cheapest accommodations I could find. You know, but I had a roof over my head, and my needs were met. I was safe. All that was good, you know, because there's times where I thought to myself, I'd go back because we'd have one like turnaround week, sometimes two turnaround weeks, but this went on for 5 weeks. So while I'm in Atlanta getting paid by the production, I have to wait 2 weeks for the checks to come to the mailbox. Okay. Whereas I get paid every week when I'm here working. So it was
excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank
It
you.
was a juggling act for sure. I think about it frequently because the payroll company they'd cut you a check for each day you worked on set. So I might get 3 checks in the mailbox one day, and then when they show up, I got 3 of them, but then they'd show up sporadically, sometimes one a day, every other day. So when I wasn't making my weekly wages working here, I was waiting on Netflix checks to survive, and
That's cool,
again,
though.
when you absolutely, brother, absolutely, and when you're working in Atlanta, and it's like it was so surreal, man. And there were
That's awesome.
for so many of us. There's like an alumni now. I would imagine of Cobra Kai background actors that lives have been changed.
Yeah, man. Because the more work that you do, the more you level up, and then you get into the bigger roles. So I get it. And I want to commend you for not giving up, because some people give up at some point. Thank you for not giving up. So let's talk about you now. Let's talk about your backstory. Let's get into it.
All right.
Tell people what growing up was like, what life was like for you. You're originally from PA, right?
Yes, sir. Northwest Pennsylvania, Franklin,
All right.
Venango County. Shout
Hey,
out to Venango.
hey, I'm a PA guy myself. You know this.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So tell me a bit.
So yeah, I was my father was a military man, blue collar worker, worked in the plastics industries. Grew up there, and my mom and dad divorced. I was 3 years old, actually, Tigmatic, and I don't think I shared this, but I was hit by a Lincoln Continental doing 45 miles an hour. So it was almost, I ever since looking back, ever since I was 3, it's kind of been me against the world, me against the odds. I wasn't expected to survive that, but anyway. So my mom and dad divorced. My mom ended up relocating to Southwest Florida with my grandmother, my dad's mother, and started over. So growing up, it was back and forth from Southwest Florida to Northwest Pennsylvania. And if you know anything about Northwest Pennsylvania, it's quite a rural area.
Absolutely.
I grew up living on a farm. My grandfather was a sheep farmer. After he worked in the log woods. We're some backcountry folk, but I remember I had a 5-gallon bucket nailed to the side of my barn, and I had a weight gym in the hay loft. It's like every time I'd watch Roadhouse and that scene where him and Sam Elliott are in the barn, I'm like, man, I had one of those too. But anyway, I'd split firewood. I was 12 years old, man. I'd get off the school bus and split firewood to heat the house for us. So it was a wholesome upbringing. And then going back and forth from the car accident, I had an eye patch, false teeth. It really did a number. So I was when I showed up in Florida, I was kind of a backwards socially. There was a shock. There was a culture shock, first of all, because I was back and forth until I hit 13. And when I hit 13, when I hit 13, I knew enough about Florida that I realized it was a whole nother world than where I'm from and what I was used to in Northwest Pennsylvania. And that was kind of the struggle from the beginning. It was a culture shock. So as soon as I hit Southwest Florida full time at 13, I've been back and forth. I did some grade school in Florida, some grade school in Pennsylvania. Bullied, constantly bullied, constantly had to, I put it like this. Sometimes I had to fight to keep my lunch money, because somebody was always trying to take my lunch money, Tig.
So where
So
in
anyway,
Florida were you?
I was in Fort Myers.
Okay.
So Fort Myers full time at the age of 13 was not friendly to me. I lived in a middle class neighborhood, but it was on the outskirts of a drug ridden area. Really pretty rough area. But anyway, the bullying started really bad then, and I was never one to, because I always in grade school, I've got friends to this day that tell me some of their fondest grade school memories is when I beat up the 200-pound sixth grader that was a bully, to everybody. I was everybody's hero. So, anyways, when the tables turned, and I became the one being pushed around and bullied, I took a stand, and it was kind of like it was my own personal OK Corral, the way I put
Right.
it. Because what happened was the pushing around, it began to really take a toll on my mental health. It was
Yeah.
it's hard to explain looking back, but I came to a point where I realized I need to take a stand for myself. So I did, and here I was 14 or 15 years old, and I'm not proud of my story, so to speak, but it is what it is. I remember having a pistol in my waistband, and I went outside and confronted the kids walking past my house, and I basically put it to them. I says, "Why you guys always messing with me, pushing me around? Expletive, 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 And I got everybody's attention, and I just lifted my shirt and showed them I had a pistol. And to be honest with you, that day, I probably was ready to hurt somebody because I was hurting inside, Get real.
Yeah.
We see it now in schools, we see it everywhere. People are mean to people, and people get to a point where they've had enough and they react, and oftentimes it's not good. So anyway, I found myself at that point. So I dealt with that situation the best way I knew how to try to create a boundary, because life is about creating boundaries. I had to make that boundary for
Absolutely.
myself to feel better that, I'm taking action. And a couple days after that, I ran into some of the same crew. I didn't have a gun. It was going to get ugly. But I tell you what, Tignac, the one main person that started the whole thing, he called his dogs off me. He says, "That dude's cool. Leave him alone." So
Oh,
at
that's
that
awesome.
point,
That changes a lot.
yeah, I had earned some street credit. But at the same time, now I'm 15 years old, and among circles, they're like, "Oh, that dude's got a gun. He'll this that." So there were other people out, because in the street, the mentality is people will push you around to try you out, to see where your heart's at, as they say. But
Absolutely.
anyway, so now I had created a reputation that I had to be willing to be accounted for, to be accounted, because people will confront you and this, that, and the third, and it's like I put myself into some dangerous territory that day. Even though it did gain me respect, it also put a bullseye on me.
Right.
So I ended up dropping out of school in ninth grade, and
Ooh.
I ended up joining a gang, which was all well and fine because the people that introduced me to this gang were from Chicago. They treated me like family. They were, because I grew up with an older brother, and that's another part of the story I didn't tell, who was one of the baddest guys with his hands in my hometown. So I
Right.
always had that umbrella. So when this opportunity to join this criminal organization presented itself, I felt that umbrella with them. So I ended up dropping out of school, and understandably so. This is a shout out to Cheryl Phillips, my mother. I remember telling my mother one morning, I says, "Mom, I joined a gang." And she says, "Oh, yeah, you did? Go live with them then." So, yeah, I was a homeless teenager living with one of the most violent Hispanic street gangs in the country, you know,
Mm.
and to me, I grew up watching Goodfellas and all these mafia movies, this crime syndicate. So to me, a lot like the acting thing, when I step on a scene or a production with people I grew up watching, that feeling, I got that feeling in the gang. You know what I mean? It's hard to
Right.
explain. I mean, maybe that didn't make sense, and I
I mean,
apologize.
it's not hard to explain for me because I can understand and relate. We didn't call ourselves gangs. We called ourselves squads, but it's similar. It's similar. So I can understand. And I was in juvie for a large part of my life, for about 8 years of my life. So within that time, I was in Warminster, Bristol, and Jameson, PA. So it's a little bit of everything in each area, you know. So whoever was the crew that was doing that then, I got plugged in with them and associated and did things with them, and you know, one thing led to another. But this isn't about me. This is more about you. So continue. I'm saying that to say I can relate. That's all.
Appreciate the relevance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It went all well and fine. This part of my life went on for about 2.5 to 3 years. I managed to become unhomeless. Even that my homeless stint was quite brief, and the reason I started staying in a homeless shelter because I got tired of running the streets at night. Um, just by this time, I had a ravaging drug addiction. You know, I was around drugs. I was around criminal stuff that at that point, I didn't have anywhere else to turn. I didn't know what to do with my life anymore. I was a pretty hopeless individual, and I was only 16.
Mm.
I remember standing in line at the homeless shelter at that young age. My addiction ended up landing me in a, a treatment program called Teen Challenge when I was young. But anyway, man, I began to watch the gang fall apart. Now, mind you, I was the only white member in our set, as it's called, and
Right.
I remember one time we were all hanging out, and there was just this huge hustle bustle. Somebody showed up, packed a bunch of bags, and hit the road. Well, turns out the FBI was after these guys, and I'm not going to share names or anything like that.
Absolutely. We ain't
But I can
doing
promise
that. We
I was
ain't doing that.
I was 16 years old playing video games, and the front door flew off the hinges, and it was the FBI. And
Dang.
I looked over my shoulder, and I was in this. Here I am. I'm in this now. I'm affiliated with these guys. I am attached. So I sat back and watched as they all crumbled. They all went from brothers to telling on each other. They were paid informants and this and that. And I got a little nervous, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was like, oh, I'm the only white member. What the hell are these guys gonna? And I had a moment of clarity, bro. And
Yeah.
at that point, I told myself, and I've shared this other places, if I didn't get out of Southwest Florida, I was going to end up in prison or dead. As I watched what went on, and it turned into me just coming to my senses and saying, I have to make a change. I had to go to the leadership and confront them and say, hey, listen, I want my freedom. I want out of this. And the truth of the matter is, you sometimes don't walk away from this organization alive, brother.
Right.
So,
Right.
so as a
It's like
teenager,
a
here I am.
blood in out type of thing.
As a teenager, here I am, drug addicted, homeless, and trying to get away from all that lifestyle, trying to remember my upbringing. See, my upbringing taught me, it's actually, I think, what saved my life, man. It brought me back, knowing what it was like to be brought up the right way, and to have morals and respect, because I lost my way for a while. I lost my way with the anger and this and that and the addiction. But anyway, I was fortunate enough that two of the guys, because see, they sent people down from Chicago to set it up. They were there. I looked out for them, and that's what got me in the door, because I looked out for their people. So fast forward 2 years when I'm about to get murdered, not once but twice, 2 contracts on my life before I was even 18 years old, brother.
Mm.
So the two guys that I would look out for, they stuck up for me that night, and they wouldn't let them kill me. So at that point in my life, I was 18 years old. I get a little shook up talking about it. I hitchhiked out of Florida. I threw a thumb, and man, I knew I had to get as far away from that scene as possible again, or else I'd be in prison or dead. I'm convinced, and I'm one of the lucky ones, man. Like I said, some people don't get lucky and make it away.
Oh
So my
man,
life has always been everything's in perspective compared to that, and I've been blessed to not only come out of that lifestyle, but be used in a magnitude of helping others come out of that lifestyle as well, as an adult.
Elaborate on how you help others.
Well, excuse me. I started working in treatment facilities. I worked for the state of Louisiana, and this had always been significant to me, Tigmatic, because I was at rock bottom, and I did my recovery steps and did what I had to do, and I went from rock bottom to working in a state treatment center in Louisiana, Southern Oaks Addiction Rehabilitation, managing recovery homes, soberness recovery homes, West Monroe, Louisiana. Love you, Kane Flores. Appreciate it. And just coming up, taking my experiences, because you know what, that little thug gangbanger, whatever I thought I was nothing but a hurt, scared individual. So taking my experiences compassionately, because you know what, man, it's tough to explain, somebody's always going through some things, and sometimes people are hurtful to others because they're hurting.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately,
hurt people, as they say. And life can have so many twists and turns that you never know where you're going to end up, which is why God had a plan for you. And with everything that you've been through, you still had some form of direction because it led you on a different path from what you were doing.
Right.
So here's my next question. I'm going to talk about the career a little bit. This is awesome that you're sharing these stories with us, because you already know, like I told you, and the viewers that watch know, this show serves as inspiration. Doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a rapper, actor, singer, preacher, whatever you do. I highlight that. But I like to have my guests share their story. So here's my next question. Who or what has been the biggest influence on your career and personal growth?
Bro, that could take a while to unpack. You know, there's so many people, and that's the thing. You know, I live by this philosophy that everybody's my teacher, if that makes sense. So I'm able to bring a little bit from everybody I've ever encountered. I mean, I could say Mr. Miyagi. You know, everybody has somebody in their life. I've been blessed. I've got numerous people. You know, there's been numerous people that have inspired me and encouraged me along the way. Uh, that's a tough question, man. I can't really whittle that down to one thing.
Okay. All right. Can you recall a specific moment when you felt like you had truly made it as an actor?
Yeah, when I turned and looked over my shoulder and seen Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid,
Right.
walking onto the same tournament mat that I was standing on, and we caught eyes, man. And I reached out and I shook his hand and I looked him dead in his eyes and I said, "Man, thanks for framing my childhood." And he just smiled and looked back at me and said, "Thank you for being here." So that moment right there, man, between that and like I said, there's numerous. It's hard to whittle them down too. But I mean, knocking at the door in St. Augustine and Damien Chapa answering the door, and I'm able to say, "Life's a risk," or nod, the same line that they say in Blood In, Blood Out. That was
Right.
pretty huge too, you know. So yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
And I
Kingdom
don't
of
look at
Silence.
it.
No, go ahead. Continue.
I don't look at it as if I've made it either. It's never about that. It's I'm thankful for each opportunity, you know, and they're gonna get, part of my story. I don't know if you know this. I had to turn down a back or a stand-in role on Bad Boys 4.
Whoa.
I was already committed to Cobra Kai. Okay. And I explained to you my work situation. You see, it was close to
Mm.
payday. I had to be in Miami. I had to be in Atlanta. I couldn't do both. I was already committed to one. So I had to turn down. I was given the green light to be the stand-in for the captain on Bad Boys 4, and I had to turn it down, bro. That was a
Uh,
hurt piece.
you know that movie grossed $1 billion, right?
I got friends in it though. I got friends in it though. Shout out to them.
those checks would have been lovely.
Oh.
And you would have been, in a film with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Yeah.
And Reggie. And Reggie.
And Reggie. Reggie
That is
got
my
off of Bad
favorite
Boys
scene.
4.
That was my favorite scene in was it Bad Boys 2 when Reggie comes to the door. That's the greatest scene. I love
Yeah.
it.
Oh man. So here's my next question. What are some behind the scene moments that have a long lasting impact on you?
So I was on set for Mexican Connection and I bought $100 pair of pants. It was a Hollywood film, a Hollywood production. I was going to work with an actor I admired as a teenager. And I got these pants and I had this stunt kit because I knew we were fighting. So I was like, man, I spent $100. Once I got there, I found out I was going to get shot. So I bought these super nice pants, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to get blood on my pants. So I'm sitting on set. We're sitting at lunch. We're having lunch on set. I'm sitting there in my boxer shorts, eating this privately prepared, catered for just for us. You know, we were renting in an apartment. We were filming in an apartment. So everybody's sitting around talking film and this and that, and I'm just sitting there in my boxers because I didn't want to get blood on my pants. Now, mind you, when we ended up having the fight scene, I didn't get blood on my pants from the special effects. I got blood on my pants because I smashed my shin off the wall while we were
Ooh.
tussling. So it
Mm.
wasn't production blood I got on my pants. It was my own blood, but it was just funny stories sitting there, working with Hollywood people in my boxers.
Oh man, that's funny. So how do you prepare for a role, both physically and mentally?
That's probably the funnest part of this whole endeavor. I love when it comes time to create a character because, you can do so much with a character. Of course, you know what production wants to see, um, but you have the privilege to add the personality trait. You just have so much liberty to make that person who you want that person to be within the parameters of what they're looking for, if that makes sense. So you're really able to. It's that feeling of creativity. It's a zone, I guess would be the best way to explain it. You hear stories of like for the Joker, how dude spent all of his time in his motel room, didn't want to be trouble with anybody because he stayed in character the whole time he was on set. And
Yeah.
and even as a featured background character, you get into that zone. You're in that character. I've had people joke. There's a clip of me out there, and I'm standing beside Terry Silver, and I'm just looking like I'm all stoic, like I'm at his service, and it really does have that look where I'm just like waiting on his next word. Well, what they don't understand is Kreese just walked by and was in Silver's face,
Mm-hmm.
and I just witnessed this confrontation, so I had to look tough, because I knew when that made film, and that was another thing. I lived 6 months of my life wondering if that was going to get edited or not. Thankfully, it didn't. But anyway, I knew when you're on camera, bro, you got to look the part. You know what I'm saying?
That's
You got
right.
to have a look. You got to have an aura about yourself. So that beauty's all embodied in creating the character. I had a fall, not necessarily a falling out, but a disagreement one time with a director of a film, creator, director, and I asked him some questions about the character. I says I need to create a backstory. He says this character doesn't have a backstory. I says I kindly disagree with you because every character has a backstory.
Right.
And I ended up turning down that role. And I was still happy for him and the team because they actually won an award for the role I turned down. How about that?
Oh, that's awesome. So, Kris,
Yes,
what
sir.
role does therapy, mindfulness, or other mental health practices play in your life?
Very significant. Very significant. I it's the one day at a time thing for me. It's I study Tai Chi. A lot of that is self-awareness, breathing. You know, it's important for me to constantly make sure I got to kind of center my thinking. I got to center it. Like a lot of for me is I know I don't have control for tomorrow, yesterday. A lot of things is acceptance. Letting go of expectations of outcomes. It's a constant. You constantly got to be vigilant of where your mind is going. But at the same time, a lot of my mindset too is based upon Wu Wei. You know, effortless action. You know what I mean? In other words,
Yeah.
rolling with the punches, man. And having I have high hopes. There's a song by Panic at the Disco. It's called High Hopes. He said, I know. Now I'm getting choked up. He always had a vision. Sometimes he never had a dime, but he always had a vision. And to me, that's always been significant because, without a vision, there's a Stoic saying, it talks about no wind is favorable for a sailor with no port. You know what I'm saying? So
Say
you
that
gotta
again,
have
Chris.
no wind is favorable for any sailor without a port. In other words,
I love it.
if I don't know where I'm going, I'm not going to get there. And there's another thing that I incorporate that I tell myself, and that's I make up. I post these little quotes on Facebook, inspirational, that come to me, whether it be through another platform or something, whatever. I share it, but there's a thought that I always had because I struggled. That going back and forth to Atlanta for 5 weeks was very exhausting. And I begin to think to myself, how in the world can I expect to get there if I'm not willing to go? Saying that to say
Absolutely.
there's, this journey on one's mental health, to be on a Netflix set, to think that I could have been on Bad Boys, what could be next? Case in point, waiting to hear back on an audition. I can't expect that I'm going to get every role I audition for, but I can have a high hope that, hey, it could be possible.
Right.
Or, so saying that to say you have to keep those things in check because you put a lot of energy into that. And, you got to learn to take care of, and I'm a work in progress. I believe in working out. I like to jog. Sometimes I struggle on the motivation more so lately. I'm 47 years old, but I realize all these things are also key to my mental health and clarity. And that's what's important to me nowadays. You see,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
and
here's
I'm
my
just,
next question. I think now to piggyback off what you said, finding alternative ways to keep your mental health in check is definitely important. The Tai Chi, the exercise, all of it, those are key elements to help that clarity up here. So I agree with you 1000%. And I commend you, man, because you got your head on straight. And to come from everything that you've come from is awesome, man. It's awesome. It's definitely awesome. I commend you, bro. Like, seriously.
thank you.
So here's my next question. Okay. How do you manage the public's expectations and pressures that come with being in the spotlight?
Well, I live by an adage. I read this book in college, and it's tough for anybody. But the title of the book is "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business." My superpower is reminding myself that it doesn't matter. The opinion, I mean, and that's there's a lot to unpack there. Of course, it matters, and we all have that need and desire to be accepted, like to stand up to the expectations. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. As long as I'm doing what I feel good and right about, it doesn't matter. So saying that to say that goes back again to how all the clarity and the mental, health and strength is important because you have to keep a head on your shoulders that not everybody's going to like you. You're going to piss people off just by being you. And guess what? That's not my problem. So saying that to say, again, it's really a thin line because you have to balance. Some people may think you're prideful. Some people may think you're arrogant. The fact of the matter is you may be. You may have to look at that. And that goes back to that mental health and clarity. I don't care what people think about me, but at the same time, I have to realize I have to care about how I portray myself, you know.
Absolutely. I call it the mirror. You have
Yeah.
to have that mirror there so you can look at yourself and reflect on the things that you need to get better with.
Yes, sir.
So
And it's ongoing.
absolutely. Absolutely. So if you could play a character that mirrors your mental health journey, how would you portray them?
Well, I've actually got a couple roles coming up. I believe one of the roles is actually a clinical psychologist. So I'm kind of looking forward to preparing that character. And mind you, it's a tough thing to talk about. I have this role coming up, or I have this or that coming up, because you know I've learned a lot too that people would encourage, you know, to sometimes not be as overzealous about what's going on. But anyway, saying that to say, the upcoming role I'll be preparing for, I look forward to it because it's going to allow me to actually, you know, become that doctor and explore what's going on in me and learn to apply that to the character and to make it more the character more believable is the goal. Um, Not to ramble on too much, but
No, you're fine.
yeah, it's I look forward to it. You know,
Oh man, that's awesome. So are there specific societal or cultural issues around mental health that you'd like to see addressed more in films or media? I'm sorry. I need some water.
well, man, like I was sharing earlier in relevance to my story as well, bullying is a big thing to me. You know, hate, I guess you could say, hate. Um, that's a big social thing for me. You know, because again, we everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants to be loved and accepted. We have the basic human, you know, needs for that. But sometimes everybody's going through something, you know, and there's a saying, stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you. And
Mm.
you know, my just the short of it is I want to help people that could do better, you know, could be better. And not because I think they're horrible, terrible, but there's so much more to tap into, you know, self validation and you know dealing with helping people with that, you know, to answer your question as far as anything that I'm passionate about, it's definitely about people that are being mean to people.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, so you like to give back, man, and I think that's pretty awesome. You like to help mentally or any way that you can. And I think we need more people like that in this world because the more people we have that are willing to help each other, the more things can get better. So that's always a great thing. All right. Two more questions. Okay. What message would you like to share with fans who may look up to you as a source of inspiration in their own mental health journey?
I like to firstly I like to thank everybody who's followed and supported my crazy, as I call it. You know, I'm out here doing this thing. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's working day by day. uh I encourage them because you know you see it a lot of times, and we all go through it. We all rack our brains, and it's going all the way back to what I said a few minutes ago. You know, stop worrying about what everybody thinks. Immediately, quit it. Stop it. It has zero benefit to your mental health. In fact, it will torment you. So that would probably be one thing that I would encourage because you know you see it all the time, especially on social media. You see people And again, we all experience it, but you know, it's not about what everybody thinks about you. You know, I know I keep going back to that. As far as mental health is concerned, learn to validate yourself. Learn to believe in yourself, to trust in yourself, to trust in your strengths as well as your weaknesses. You know, we all have them, but the only way we can't, you know, put them off and act like they're not there. We got to address them. You know, we got to be real with ourselves. And like you said, you know, that man in the mirror, at the end of the day, by and large, at the end of the day, my problem is looking back at me in my mirror. You understand? So, you
Absolutely.
know, I accept that, and I know that tomorrow I can better that. You know, I can one day at a time make each day better. You know, so another thing I would encourage people for their mental health: be patient with yourself. You know, Rome
That's
wasn't
a
built in
great
a
one.
Rome
That's a
wasn't
great
built.
one. Yeah, I agree with you there. Be patient with yourself and others as well. Because sometimes we want the things that we want that we're not even patient for others mentally. Because even in any type of job, you're still dealing with other personalities.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
because you're dealing with other personalities, you have to learn those personalities. So you have to be patient. And for a job like yours, you're on the set for weeks at a time. So you might not have a long time, but within those days or weeks, you have to learn these people so the chemistry can mesh and connect for the movie to be what it is or the show to be what it is so that y'all all can get the outcome you're looking for. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, man, that's awesome. Kris, last question. I ask every guest that's been on this show this exact same question. If it's one thing life has taught you, what is that and why?
Well, life has taught me a lot of things. Probably the biggest thing being that I can do anything I set my mind to. You know, and that's that's a double-edged sword because sometimes it's something small, it's something tiny. Other times it's something huge, and I may set my mind to it last week, but I don't see it yet. So one thing life has taught me is to keep that vision in front of myself. Um, like I said, it's very significant to be patient, to trust the process. Life has taught me that a lot of times I'm stronger than I think I am, and also conversely, sometimes I'm weak. Obviously, we all are. To like I shared a little bit ago, to learn to address my weaknesses, and you know, life has taught me a lot, man, and I'm constantly learning, as we all are. So you know, I don't know all the answers. I struggle sometimes, you know, but it's also taught me to share with others, you know, to that there's we can lift each other up, you know. So it's taught me a lot, man, and I'm grateful. I'm very grateful for where I'm at, you know, and to be able to have this conversation even.
That's awesome, man. Kris, I want to thank you for coming on, man. You were an awesome guest. Very vulnerable, very open, and the dialogue between us was awesome tonight. And don't be a stranger, man. You got to come on again. You definitely got to come on again. Uh, so what I need you to do is turn your camera off, mute your mic, but don't hang up.
Copy that.
I'm going to close off and do my thing with the folks before we close out, and we'll talk behind the scenes.
All right, my brother. Thank you again for having me on. Thank you, everybody
All right.
that tuned in.
Thank you. All right, folks. Y'all know what it is. Another one. We got it done. And it was awesome. My guest was awesome. He shared his story with y'all. And I hope you learned something from it because it was very inspirational. And you can check him out in films. Listen, I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely a fan of Cobra Kai. I have a Cobra Kai tee. Matter of fact, the flyer of this backdrop that you see is me in a Cobra Kai tee. So I want you guys to have a great Saturday. Love your life. Love others. Put God first. Trust Him. And stay positive. Once again, it's your boy Tigmatic signing off. You watched another episode of The Pot, and we out.
Everybody go tapping with the pot with Tigmatic.
Y'all tune into the Pop Podcast. And guess what? There's an episode of
And you are tuned into the Pot Podcast.
With the Pop Podcast with my boy Tigmatic. You hear me? It's going down.
To follow the Pot Podcast with Tigmatic.
That's that number one.
That's that number one.